recording. And I would like to thank you, Tania. And Tania, I just want to give a special acknowledgement. Her father passed away last month, Dr. Musa Nasser, who was like my Palestinian father, I always say, and a great man, a great Palestinian, a great humanitarian, a great physician, a great father, and somebody who, had he not touched my life, there would be literally thousands of children who would not be alive today in Palestine, thanks to his leadership and his support. And that's true for her mother, Suhaila, as well. The other person I'd like to introduce is Dr. Zeena Salman, who you may also know her as my wife, but more importantly, she's somebody who has great experience on the ground in Palestine and as a co-founder of HEAL Palestine. I'd like to have her introduce herself as well.
Thank you, Steve. Hi, everyone. I'm so honored and proud to be joining today as a co-founder of HEAL Palestine. My name is Zeena Salman. I am a pediatrician and a pediatric oncologist or cancer specialist. I've been working in Palestine for 10 years now and look forward to working with everyone here today and people around the world, everyone who cares about the children of the Gaza Strip. Thank you.
Thank you, Zeena. And I think it's important. First, I just want to give a special thanks to Zeena. She actually has not only been a great physician and a great doctor who's also helped save the lives of hundreds of children with cancer in Palestine, but many of you might know that my first wife, who helped build and start PCRF, Huda al-Masri, passed from cancer in 2009. And you can imagine what an amazing circle of life it is to have the first wife you built an organization with for 17 years, and then my wife now is a doctor who treats children. She passed from cancer, of course, a doctor who treats children with cancer and also did so in the department named after Huda. I'm so honored to have been blessed with two amazing women in my life. So I'm going to talk a little bit about HEAL, what HEAL Palestine means. I think that's what the important thing is, what we're here for, and why we launched HEAL Palestine on January 1st. HEAL Palestine is a registered, United States registered 501c3 tax-exempt organization. We are focused on four main branches and four main pillars, however you wish to describe them, of aid and support for the Palestinian people. HEAL stands for Health, Education, Aid, and Leadership. And I'm going to go through what each four of those branches mean and give you guys an opportunity as a community to come forward and support and be a part of what we're trying to accomplish on the ground in building this organization. So first of all, we want to say that this is an organization that's going to be unlike any other organization, I think, in the world, meaning that we've acknowledged and we recognize, and I've had the opportunity for over 30 years to travel the world and meet Palestinians and Arabs and people who love Palestine like myself from all over the world who have so much talent and so much skills and so much experience and so many resources from a human point of view that we've not adequately, as a community or as organizations, tapped into what's available in our community. And in particular for the Palestinians, you have probably the most educated diaspora community in the world, one of them for certain. And I understand, and I've seen it firsthand, the amount of goodwill and abilities that exist in your communities everywhere, whether it's in the Gulf, whether it's in North and South America or in Europe, Australia, New Zealand. There are Palestinians, there's Arabs, and there's people like myself who love Palestine all over the world who want to do more. And I think what we've seen over the past 3+ months in Gaza is this terrible frustration that we all share now of not feeling that we're contributing enough to helping the people on the ground, and that there's so much more that we can do and need to do individually and collectively to respond to this crisis. And I think it's the most important thing that we want to do is find ways to empower our communities all over the world to be more involved and have a bigger impact in the lives of our children now and in the rebuilding that's going to take place in Palestine and in Gaza in the coming years, many years. What we see today now, with over 10,000 children killed in Gaza, with over 70% of the structures and homes destroyed, with 90% of the population being displaced inside Gaza, the Gaza Strip, with nearly 30,000 children suffering significant trauma injuries, and the entire population of Gaza, traumatized, psychologically traumatized. what this means to us as an organization and as individuals is that we have to find ways to respond to their needs, not only now, today, as they undergo this terrible, brutal bombing campaign, which every day kills over 100 people and has resulted in over 10,000 children being killed. And as I mentioned before, over 30,000 injured. But it also means that we have to think strategically on long-term responses and solutions that are going to help rebuild not only the Gaza Strip itself physically, which is, I think, um, uh, uh, something that governments are going to come in and do when the opportunity arises. But what we're going to do is rebuild the lives of the children there who are being affected, who've lost parents, who've had themselves significantly injured, even in many cases permanently injured. As you now know, there's thousands of children who are amputees or who are in wheelchairs and paralyzed and crippled for the rest of their lives. What's going to happen to those children if we don't come forward and find ways to intervene and heal them? And that's what this organization's about. So our as we witness this terrible crisis and as we all feel this terrible sense of hopelessness, of despair, of sadness, of depression, watching every day the killing and the suffering and the destruction of the Gaza Strip and the people there, particularly the children, and the anger and frustration that comes with seeing every day these brutal, brutal killings of innocent children. We have to channel that we have to channel those feelings into something positive. And what we're doing in HEAL we have four main pillars. And briefly, what those are, how the organization is being structured, and how we're going to ask you as a community to come forward and give your area of expertise and support for our this initiative. Is that we're building our four pillars with advisory groups. So the first one is health. H stands for health in HEAL, and you might have seen us present that on social media. What does that mean? What are we going to do in health? Well, this is something I've been doing for more than 30 years, is working in the health field in the Gaza Strip. And in many ways, we were having significant impact on the ground there. As you may know, we built the first and only pediatric cancer department in Gaza, named after Tania's parents, Dr. Musa and Suhaila Nasir, which was the first and only cancer department, which Dr. Salman has been a leader in building up the services there and improving patient care. That's the kind of work that we focus on as an organization, is identifying gaps in the health sector and addressing those gaps, whether they are in training a doctor or an area of medicine that needs to be improved. And obviously, right now, the health system is completely collapsing in Gaza. Even today, as some of you are following the news, Nasser Hospital in Han Yunis, a place I know very well, and I worked with many of the doctors there over the years. God bless them and God protect them. These are the heroes on the ground there, the health care providers, the emergency service people, the doctors and nurses who are working in the health sector there. God protect them. Those people in Nasser Hospital, that's one of the last few remaining functioning, if you want to call it functioning hospitals, that's completely overwhelmed. Now it's got under siege with tanks and bombings and killings. And it's just an incredibly sad situation. But we have to come in when the time is there for us to intervene and rebuild the health sector. We'll do so by identifying ways that we can use our resources in the most effective way. So in the health sector of HEAL, we are going to be supporting the development of the health sector through training doctors, through sending them abroad for fellowships, through identifying gaps in areas in the health sector that we can come in with our group of volunteer physicians from all over the world who can help us rebuild through strategic interventions, this quality of services and improving patient care. That's the long term. But what can we do today in the health sector? Well, what we're doing is we're in the leading forefront of identifying injured children and getting them out for medical care. That's something that we've been doing. I've been doing. That's how even we started over 30 years ago. The work of the organization, how I got started serving Palestine was first bringing in injured and sick Palestinian kids to the United States for free. I remember the first injured Palestinian child to ever come from Gaza back in 1991. I brought him out before I even started an organization. I was working as a journalist there. And that's something that even today, with the health system collapsing, there's literally thousands and thousands of children who need medical care they can't get. So we're identifying these kids. And one thing we strongly believe in as a kind of a culture of the organization in general is that we like to partner with others, organizations, with other initiatives. And what we're doing with getting kids out for treatment is that we're working with other groups. I'm sure you've seen them on social media. Kinder Care and Save Gaza Children and other groups are with us. We're working as a team. We believe strongly in this kind of partnership. so we don't duplicate, and we also share resources. So we're in the process of getting lots of injured kids out, and we hope that you'll join us in taking care of these kids when they're in their community as volunteers, as host families, as people who can make them feel welcome and loved when they're in your community for this difficult treatment. We'll follow us on social media, and you'll see these opportunities in your community to come forward and be involved. The other area of working in the health sector, of course, is in the future sending in volunteer medical teams, as we've been doing for years now. And this is all led, the health sector component is led by a health advisory board of over 100 doctors and nurses and other professionals who all have firsthand experience on the ground in Gaza, and are people who help guide us to make sure that we utilize our resources in the most effective way, and that we are taking on projects and programs that we can effectively impact. So in the health sector of HEAL, we're already quite active on the ground there. And we would like you to be very much, if you are a health professional, if you have experience in any kind of health field, please click on our link that we're going to provide you in the health sector and send us a message where you can sign up and volunteer. One final area in the health sector before I move on to education, which is we understand the need for mental health support and therapy for rebuilding Gaza. I think this cannot be overstated how traumatized the population is in Gaza, having experienced firsthand this carnage and this level of violence and poverty and suffering. And now you have starvation on the ground in Gaza, and getting to the point where we're going to start seeing innocent children dying from starvation in Gaza while trucks full of food sit across the border ready to feed them. This is unimaginable from a human point of view, and from any other point of view, to think that this kind of situation would continue in this modern world. However, this is the reality that we have to deal with. So this is a traumatized population, and to come and rebuild a society in the future and to rebuild Gaza in the future, we have to take on the mental health aspect, and we are going to be building that component as well. If you have a role in that area of healthcare, uh, please reach out to us and join our advisory board so you can help guide us and be a part of that very significant component. And just briefly, we understand that this is a massive, massive, huge challenge, and that in some areas we're not going to be successful. When you talk about post-traumatic stress, for example, we have to take into consideration this is not post, this is ongoing traumatic stress. So whereas traditionally in the area of mental health care, patients who or people who had suffered from post-traumatic stress experiences could be treated effectively, in the case of people in Gaza, particularly children in Gaza, the continuous exposure to violence and poverty and insecurity that the children there are suffering from requires us to take on a different strategy, and hopefully we'll be able to address it. When we bring kids out for treatment, we're going to be making sure they get counseling, that there's mental health professionals who are with them along the way, and people who come out with them, because every single person in Gaza is traumatized. So that's one thing. So moving on to education. The first is health. We talked about it. Education, of course, as you all know, the school year in Gaza is shut down. No, there's not a single child who's gone to school this year, and they're not going to. The schools are the education system is completely destroyed, and there's no indication that the education system is going to be rebuilt anytime soon. And we know how important education is in general. I mean, every in the lives of children, they need to develop along a certain education process. And in the case of the Palestinians in particular, education is critical. There's the only hope that people of Gaza have to rebuild a society is when they have an educated population. And now that their children are no longer in school, that the teachers are no longer teaching, that the schools are full of internally displaced people just trying to survive every single day. We have to consider how we're going to come when the time enables us to rebuild the education system, to be part of that rebuilding process, both on a macro level, because it's a huge challenge when you have a million children who need to be educated. How can we help rebuild that? What are the resources that are needed? How do we utilize those resources most effectively? But also on micro level. So we think we can be effective also by identifying communities and areas within the education system that we can build up services. For example, and I'm just using these as examples, we can identify that there are a whole population of kids with autism, for example, that need special services that are not part of the education system, or they weren't before October 7th. let's come in and build something like that. That's something we could do. It's just a matter of utilizing your resources and doing it the right way. Same with children with special needs or children who have some kind of injury or disability that requires that they have a special education opportunity that they currently don't have. We can come in and build those type of services and programs and give these kids opportunities that they currently don't have. So within our education system, education pillar, we're going to be asking, and this is only going to be implemented when the time comes that the education system gets back on track. Although we can do some programs now, hopefully on the ground there when it comes to some community-based education that we're looking into. But on the larger scale, we have to take this on when the situation enables us to. We're asking for people who have experience and a background in education in developing countries and conflict areas to join us and help us become part of our advisory board so that we, again, take the experience and the advice and the leadership of people who know better than us how to build these programs and how to guide us in utilizing our resources in the most effective way. That's the pillar of education. That's something we would like you guys to be a part of and help build that program for us. We know how critical and important it is, particularly to the Palestinian people. The other area that in HEAL is A for aid. And obviously, we're talking about an existential crisis right now where children don't have food, where there's no medicine, where there's no shelter, where it's winter and people don't have adequate clothing. Every basic need that we take for granted or we even forget about as being a basic need that people in Gaza, the children of Gaza, do not have. So it's absolutely critical for us to be part of the aid response. And we're doing that both internally through a lot of different internal programs to the best of our ability. We already have the head of our aid program on the ground. His name is Faris Abu Faris, and he's leading this program for us internally in Gaza and has been doing a lot of amazing work there. He's actually it's amazing how, again, the circle of life. Faris was injured in 1988. He was actually shot in the face as a teenager, and I became friends with him. I arranged for him treatment in the States over 30 years ago, and we've been friends ever since. And he is on the ground. He was on the ground. He lives in New Jersey, has a family there, but was visiting his mother in the Shati refugee camp on October 7th when he got stuck there. But he had the opportunity to leave, and he chose not to. He said, "I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to help my people." And that's the kind of spirit that we're building this organization around. And we're very honored and privileged to have somebody as brave and as compassionate as Faris leading our programs on the ground there. And these include not only internal programs where we're able to provide empowerment opportunities for people to be part of the aid distribution, but also bringing in aid from abroad. And that's something we're working on as well. And you're going to, if you follow us on social media, you'll see a lot of success coming up very soon. And if you'd like to be part of our aid relief and humanitarian relief in that area, just sign up to that link as well, which is being entered in the chat room. And then the final area, so we have H for health, E for education, A for aid, and then the most interesting one for me, and one that I've thought about for many years that I've wanted to do, and I think is really important, which is the area of leadership. Um, I'm not talking about political leadership. I'm talking about building people who can, giving youth in, particularly in Gaza, and this is the perfect time for it. It will be soon, the perfect time for it. The opportunity to, and the training and support they need to become leaders in their communities, meaning that they identify areas that they need that have problems, that have challenges, and those can be micro problems in their community. If you're in Jabalia refugee camp and there's an issue of clean water or something within your community, we want to help encourage young leaders to take on these problems and give them the skill set to solve those problems, to build organizations, community-based organizations that can address micro issues in their communities and help train them to be leaders, to run small organizations, to build organizations, to grow organizations that can take on the responsibility that governments don't have the resources or the ability to manage. And that's something that we as an umbrella organization would give seed money and training, most importantly, training to these young leaders and help develop them and support them. We also believe strongly, and this is another area that's very interesting, and I think this is where a lot of you are going to have opportunities to come in and volunteer and be part of HEAL Palestine in the future, and more importantly, part of healing and rebuilding the lives of children in Gaza, the thousands of lives of children in Gaza that are being destroyed right now or have been destroyed over the past 3 months. That is the mentorship program we're putting into place. And that is a program where we are going to be identifying these youth and children on the ground who have who've been affected permanently by this last 3 months of violence, kids who've been permanently disabled or injured as a result of the trauma they've experienced, kids whose parents have been killed, kids who are affected in other ways. We want to identify them and start linking them with mentors and people like yourselves outside. And then as they get closer to the point of becoming out of, through the education system and through the development into late teens and early 20s, we want to give them opportunities to become independent and to have lives of meaning and to not to be dependent on governments or their families or charity to survive. I think that my experience being in Gaza for over 35 years, and just knowing so many people there, that the most hardworking, dedicated people, they just don't have opportunities that we have. But what we can do, because we have this amazing community of Palestinians and Arabs all over the world who are so experienced and so developed and have been leaders in their communities abroad, is that we have this great resource, which is you. And we want to link this resource to the people there on the ground, the youth there who need these opportunities that they otherwise are not going to get in the Gaza Strip. And your job would be as a mentor to help work with these youth, to give them the opportunities that they need to become doctors, lawyers, accountants, graphic designers, social workers, teachers, whatever it is. Everybody has different dreams in life, especially these young people. We want to know what their dreams are. We want to link them with people like yourself who have that skill set and then guide them through the struggle of rebuilding their lives in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And that's where, and as an organization, we want to work with you and with those kids in Gaza. So whenever they need anything and you need something to help them to reach their goals and their dreams of independence and sustainability, to be independent, we want to be there to help facilitate that as an organization. This is a huge, ambitious project. And I think part of it is the success of it is going to be not only the ability to help these kids rebuild and recover and give them a higher level of self-esteem, that they're not forgotten and they're not ignored, that their lives do matter, that we are here for them, and we're not going to allow this crime that's being committed against them to go without our response, which is one of healing and love and solidarity. But it also shows, in my opinion, the world that we're unified, that there is no difference among us when it comes to the Palestinian issue. There's no politics, there's no religion, there's no geography. We're here as human beings. Whether you're Palestinian or not on this call, it doesn't matter. If your heart is with the people of Gaza, to the children of Gaza, there is this place for you in HEAL Palestine to contribute and be part of the essential rebuilding of the Gaza Strip and the lives of the people in Gaza. And this mentorship program is one that gives you an opportunity to come in and be involved for the long term. Right now, you've seen them, 3-year-old children having their legs blown off, 5-year-old kids whose parents have been killed. They need our love. They need our support. They need our mentorship for the next 20 years, 15 years, whatever it takes. So this dedication, this is a holistic, community-based program that I don't think has ever been done before in any organization, anywhere in the world on the scale that we're going to try to implement it over time. You have to give us a chance to build this infrastructure for these programs and to build these programs when the time enables us. Obviously, you cannot do a mentorship program right now under these conditions when the Palestinian population, there's nearly 2 million people stuck in the southern part, particularly in Rafah, on the brink of starvation. We're talking right now, our focus is on health and aid, because those are the areas that the urgent need for is right now, but also the areas that we can implement immediately. But with education and in the mentorship leadership area, that's the next phase. And that's the most important. We have to plan for that now and be ready to implement when the time comes, because saving lives is what we're doing now, and rebuilding lives is what we're going to do in the future. We want you to be part of both, but the rebuilding part is really the one that's going to take a long-term commitment. So for these 3-year-old children that are having their legs blown off and having their parents killed and so on, we have to take responsibility for them. Those are our kids. And whatever's happened to them in the last 3 months is our responsibility. I'm an American. Those are my bombs that are being dropped on those kids in Gaza. And it's my responsibility as an American, but more importantly, as a human being, to stand up and to try to heal them in any way we can. And I think this mentorship program, along with our 3 other pillars, are really the best way that we can come together and not allow ourselves to be overwhelmed with depression, hopelessness, or frustration. There are ways that we can change the narrative and the reality of what's happening in Gaza. We have to stay focused. We can't give up, and we can't be distracted by things we cannot control. What can we control? We can control our actions and how we're going to take responsibility for the lives of these children there. So I think I'm going to take some questions now. That's the basic. Just before I take questions, that's what HEAL Palestine stands for. That's why we started it. That's why Tania, Zeena, and myself decided to launch this. I think there's so much more that needs to be done that we haven't done enough of. I've been doing this work for over 30 years, so I feel that this is exactly the course that my life should go professionally. I've committed my life to serving the Palestinian people in a positive way. And now this terrible, terrible crisis, genocide in Gaza, is one that absolutely requires even more commitment than I've ever given in my life. And this is the direction that we're going to go as an organization. And it's complete. Our success, and our success is measured by the people we help, is completely dependent on how much each of you are going to be committed and part of this. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to our moderator, I think, who has some questions. Is that Zeena? There you are.
Hi, yes. Thank you, Steve, for going through a great description of what HEAL is so far and what we hope to be. Do you mind taking just a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, which obviously means 10 for you, to describe for people? I think the question that we're getting the most over and over in our Q&A section is about how people can join, how they can help. So just so you all know, if you look at the chat, not the Q&A, but the actual chat, I've posted the links for each of the signups for H, E, A, and L. We've gotten a lot of questions about whether somebody is considered an expert or not. If you have experience in a certain field, please feel free to sign up and we will be in touch. We've also gotten a lot of questions from people who have signed up already and wondering when they're going to hear back. Please know that we are a 21-day-old. We are a newborn baby as an organization. So give us a couple of weeks. We are still putting together the structure of the organization, what the committees, the advisory boards are going to look like, and even some of our staffing. There have been questions about jobs and staff. All of this will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. I'll be putting in the chat the newsletter link as well, so you can sign up on MailChimp for our newsletter, and that'll help give you updates in addition to signing up for one of those four individual pillars, H, E, A, or L. So Steve, with that, you can, if you could just take a couple minutes to describe further how people can get involved in this.
Yeah, first of all, by signing up in the areas that you feel that you can best contribute or that's most interesting to you. But within that, once you are signed, and within a couple of probably weeks, and as I said already, we've already built building our health advisory board, for example. We already have had a meeting already. That's being led by Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitta, by the way, a very renowned and respected surgeon who spent 2 months in Gaza treating injured children and injured patients during the first 2 months of this bombing campaign, this genocide. How we're structuring it is, if you're interested in the area, let's say, of education, we will then take all of those people who volunteer, and then we will kind of segment that group into what your areas of interest are. Maybe you just want to be a one-on-one mentor or teacher to a child who needs special education. Maybe you have a teaching background. Maybe you have a background in academic and building programs and helping organizations to develop community-based education programs on the ground. And that's where we would kind of maybe put you in a more an advisory role, a consulting role for the organization when it comes to building education programs there in the ground. So you have people who might be implementing some of these programs, others who might be helping us to design and structure programs that could be effectively implemented. And that's just an example of how, when we take your this great pool of potential support, all of you as volunteers coming in and signing up for something, then we'll go through and segment how we're going to best reach out to you and engage you and utilize what areas that you think you can be contributing, and how we think our needs are to utilize your skill set and your experience. That's in education, for example. The same in for example, in the leadership mentorship. There's obviously going to be different levels. So if you have 16, 17, 18-year-old kid in Gaza who's ready to finish, God willing, in the future, the situation will be back to somewhat, I don't want to say normal, because Gaza has never been normal, but where they're in a process of going through the education system, being ready to graduate and go on to a professional life, whether it's to further education or vocational training. In that area, we would take your volunteers. We would take people who have certain skill sets that can help guide some of those older teens along to that next level of independence or growth. But for younger kids, for example, as I mentioned, we have 3-year-olds who have had their legs blown off. God bless them. Those are kids that are our responsibility. We want to mentor them as well. We want to heal them physically. We want to give them, we want to heal them psychologically as much as one can, but we also want to put them in a program in which over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, there are responsibility through a mentorship program. And for that, you don't need to have an executive or a doctor or an accountant or an engineer come in and be the mentor for that 3-year-old. You can have a young person who maybe doesn't have, and teach them how to be mentors and teach them how to take responsibility for and communicate with that child and that family for the next 5, 10, 15 years. And as that young person grows as a mentor with the mentoree, you see that development and more opportunities will grow over time between them as well when it gets to the point where they're able to assist them into a level of independence and adulthood, which is our main objective in this program. So really there's an issue of all of you sign up for areas that you think are you want to be a contributor and be part of. And I'm just giving you examples of how we then, within those groups, we're going to go through and segment people based on what their skill sets are, what their interests are, what their abilities are, and what the needs of the organization are in building these programs. For the mentorship program, for the education program, we're building those. We need your help to design those and make sure that we do things the right way. There's so much talent and expertise out there. We want to use it. We don't want to be, our job is to implement, and your job is to help us to do it the right way and make sure it's done by best practices and by using our resources in the most effective way. You could have all the money in the world right now. It's not enough to rebuild Gaza. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but billions of dollars is not enough. We're not going to have that kind of money. But what we do have is a wealth of talent and an amazing amount of passion and people who want to be involved. And in my opinion, that's even more valuable than money, because we're going to need to do this for the next 10 and 20 years. So we hope you'll be part of that. I hope that answered that, Zeena.
Yes, and hopefully that answered a lot of the questions in the Q&A. We've been getting a lot of questions about how people can get involved. There is a question that's come up a few times, and Steve, if you could just take maybe 1 minute to address this, and then I think we can keep talking about HEAL. But there are a lot of questions about why you left PCRF and how HEAL will be or is different from PCRF.
Yeah, so I think as you heard me outline, HEAL has a pretty broad scope. With taking on a long-term mentorship program, with taking on education, those are things that PCRF's focus was, and I'm very proud of this. I built it for 30 years, and with the support of thousands of people, many of you on this call, and I want to thank you. If you're on this call and you've been part of PCRF as a volunteer doctor, as a donor, as a host family, as a chapter member, at whatever capacity you helped in PCRF or are helping in PCRF, I want to thank you. You've made my life, you've given me meaning. You also helped me get through the one of the hardest periods of my life when Huda passed in 2009. It was PCRF, which and my kids that enabled me to find meaning and purpose to keep going. So PCRF to me will always be my baby, and that of so many people. But with that being said, HEAL has a broader scope. And it gives us, I think, taking on these other areas, especially during this crisis in Gaza, this complete destruction of the society in Gaza, when I think there's so many opportunities to do more. And as I grew professionally with so much experience building programs and running a very successful organization like PCRF, I saw also for me, I had a bigger responsibility to do more and to use that 30 plus years of experience to have a bigger impact. And particularly in the areas that I mentioned, which is really the one I'm really excited about, in addition to all the other ones, of course, is the mentorship one. I want to the legacy that we can leave individually by changing the lives of these young people to become leaders in their communities. And, a perfect example is Faris Abu Faris, who I mentioned, who's leading our aid on the ground there. When I first brought him out in 1991, 1992, even before PCRF started, he was just a kid who'd just been shot in the face from a refugee camp in Gaza. And now he's on the ground in Gaza leading these relief efforts. And, he's putting his life in danger. But that's exactly the kind of investment in young people that pays off in leaders that will be the ones who change Palestinian society into something to rebuild from the ashes a society that will be productive and that the people there will have opportunities that they currently don't have. That's a perfect example of how this mentorship leadership program will be successful, as you can see from the example of Faris. he could be, we can multiply him by thousands if we do it the right way. And if we are dedicated and we are consistent with what our goals are and our objectives are, we can have thousands of young people becoming like Faris, leaders in their communities that help themselves to rebuild Gaza from this terrible, terrible, destructive crisis that they're undergoing right now. Sina, hope that was clear. So
Sorry, guys. It looks like someone is trying to hack into the webinar, but we keep catching them. So we'll
good
keep doing
job.
that. If you guys keep
Pick
hearing
them off.
someone unmuting, that's the reason for that. There have been several questions, Steve. If you can respond to this briefly, because we have like 150 questions, but we'll try to keep to some common themes. There are several questions about evacuation of children and hosting of children. If you could speak on that briefly.
Yeah, that's a huge question. It's a huge challenge. By the way, Zeena, Dr. Salman, who she has led the evacuation of over 40 kids with cancer out of Gaza. So actually, I should let you answer that question, Zeena. But briefly on the injured kids, getting kids out of Gaza now is a huge challenge. It's a coordination issue between the Egyptians and the Israelis. There's no real set system in place. Even now, with trying to get in work, currently we've been working all morning on getting a couple of terribly injured children and young people out of Gaza. It's just really, really challenging because there's so many different players and factors involved here. From a government point of view, from a political point of view, which we're not involved in, but that's part of what's influencing and impacting the ability to move people out. And just from a logistic point of view, communications is down in Gaza. How do you communicate with the family to go to the border? For example. And, some children are badly injured. How do you make sure they are transported into the kind of logistical and temporary facility that enables them to move on to treatment centers? The good news is that there are literally hundreds of hospitals all over the world, particularly in North America, that are going to take our kids for free. And that we had the other good news is that we have literally tens of thousands of people all over the world, like yourselves on this call, who are willing to be part of helping these kids when they're in your community. I've hosted myself dozens of kids in my own home who were in the U.S. for treatment. And I can tell you there's no more rewarding and satisfying act than to have a child from Gaza or from Palestine or from Syria or Iraq or anywhere who needs medical care in your home being treated. It's a very rewarding experience. So I know that there's a huge amount of goodwill. The challenge is just getting them out and coordinating that. What we've done recently is we've been reaching out to all the organizations involved on the ground trying to transport kids out. And you're probably familiar with them from social media, Save Gaza Children, Gaza Kinder Care, and so on. We're all working together. We're all one team. We're all sharing resources and information so we don't duplicate. And I think that's how we're going to maximize getting kids out and working together to get these kids healed. There's some horrific injuries. Some of them, unfortunately, yesterday we had two children that we were reviewing their files in hospitals in Egypt, and both of them had significant spinal cord injuries from shrapnel. I think they were both 5 and 3 years old. And both of them, we sent them to our pediatric neurosurgeons for their evaluation. And unfortunately, the response was neither of them are ever going to walk again. And that's terrible news. But that doesn't mean that we don't help them. Those are kids that, again, these are our kids, and that we take responsibility for these children. They may not be able to get treatment to walk again, at least now with the current medical technology that exists for spinal cord injuries. But there's other ways that we can come in and heal them and give them opportunities and help their families and give them resources and give them at least some level of support and comfort over the next however many years it takes for each of these kids to have better opportunities that they otherwise are going to have. We don't just say, you will never walk again. Our doctors can't help you, and walk away. We say, okay, we can't help you walk again right now, but there's other ways that we can heal you, that you can be a part of our efforts to make you better. Whether that's mental health support, getting them wheelchairs, getting them physical therapy, staying with them for the long period of time, making sure that if they have a home that's rebuilt in Gaza, there's a ramp for the wheelchair to get into. There's a ton of things you can do for every one of these kids, no matter what. It doesn't have to always be a solution for their medical condition as much as we would like it to be. but it doesn't mean that an answer from a surgeon means that we're walking away from helping these kids. So getting them out is a challenge. It's one that we're working on. I won't go into the details because it's very confusing and long, but I will tell you that once they're in your community, we're going to ask you guys to help us and just to work with us and understand that all of us have a role to play at different levels, but whatever that role is, it's significant in the healing process for these children. I hope that answered the question on that issue.
I think it did. People are asking if they fit into more than one pillar. There are a couple different questions I'm going to combine here into one. People are asking if they fit into more than one pillar. People are also asking if they are maybe not an expert, but have some experience in a certain field. Can they join one of those pillars? And people are asking if they feel like they're not an expert in any of the four pillars, but want to still volunteer. Do
Yeah,
you want to do
well,
it one by one?
yeah, give me the first one.
I
I'll
already
try.
forgot what the first one was. If there people are interested in more than one pillar, is that okay?
If you have the time, definitely. It's up to you. I mean, if people have, or what we don't want you to do is say you're going to commit to something and then not commit because, we've proven over the last, many years, we're professional. The way we try to run things is very professionally. And that's not to say we don't respect people's time and so on. But if you're coming in and you want to be involved in more than one pillar and you have the time and you're dedicated to it, ahlan wa sahlan, we would love to have you. So feel free to sign up for any of them. I think the other question is they may not be an expert. They might have some expertise. That's fine as well. I mean, this is a grassroots initiative. I think a lot of it's going to require brainstorming and a lot of those ideas on what is required for us to respond to this terrible crisis. It requires the input of everybody, just fresh thinking, fresh ideas. You don't have to be an expert for that. You just have to come in willing to kind of think outside the box on what some of the solutions might be that we could come up with to help these kids. Even if it's one child in Egypt who is now paralyzed, maybe you guys have an idea. Maybe you know somebody. Maybe you have some concepts or some network or some resources that we can use just to help that kid. That's enough. Doesn't have to be a grand, initiative that is going to change the education system. Although if you have that ability, we welcome you as well. And then the final one I think you asked, Zeena, is if they don't have any expertise at all. Look, for the leadership mentorship area, I don't think you have to be an expert for that. You have to be willing to give your time and your compassion and your willingness to be involved in somebody's life as a mentor, as a friend, as a guide. And we can even team you in groups of 2 or 3, and that's fine too. The important thing is in this area of work, what Heal Palestine is all about at the end of the day is healing the lives of these kids. And you don't have to be an expert to have love in your heart, kindness in your actions, and compassion in your soul. That's something that is not taught in school. It's what makes us human. So if you have those qualities, there's a place for you in Heal Palestine, particularly in our mentorship program. And there's other ways as well, finally, sorry, Zeena, which is that, look, we're building an organization. As Zeena mentioned earlier, we're 21 days old. Build an organization. If you have ways in your community that you want to help and get us off the ground and volunteer for us in wherever you're at all over the world, and you think there's ways that you can share our message, share our vision, share our model for rebuilding and healing the children of Gaza, do it in your community. Help us be our ambassador wherever you're at. I mean, there's a place for all of you. There's nobody on this call today who doesn't have a place in Heal Palestine.
So just a couple of quick housekeeping questions that continue to come up in the chat as well. A lot of interest in volunteering. It's actually amazing how much interest we're having in volunteering. And as we mentioned before, we have the links for HEA and L signups, as well as the link for the MailChimp newsletter. So please, pick one of the letters, whatever's closest to your work, your expertise, your skills. Sign up for the newsletter, and we will also send out all of the links for those of you asking. We will send out all of those links in the post Zoom. So to all attendees, we'll send out all of these links again. So don't worry if you missed them or you aren't able to copy them. Also, if you've been putting your email address in the chat, we're trying our best to keep up with everyone. But because there's so many, please sign up for the newsletter. Please sign up because it's going to be a little bit harder for us to get all of these email addresses here. There's another question that continues to come up about company matching. Steve, can you speak to that for a quick second because we're in our last 5 minutes here?
Yeah, we're setting up the company matching program within the next couple of weeks. But that'll be an essential part of building Heal Palestine. So just keep your eye out on our website. We'll probably announce that in a newsletter. So as Zeena said, it's important that you sign up for the newsletters because a lot of volunteering opportunities and a lot of news about company matching and kids coming to your community and ways that you can get involved are going to be coming in our weekly newsletter. So just sign up for that, and then you'll be aware of when that company matching program is set up. But we are definitely setting it up. It's a priority for us. Let me just say one thing, Zeena, quickly about when people do sign up for one of the four main branches or pillars of Heal Palestine. We then are going to be having calls, town meetings like this related to education, related to health, related to aid, related to leadership mentorship program, where we're going to have these kind of conversations on a larger scale, but also breaking it down, as I mentioned, into segmented groups. And that's how we're going to really kind of give you guys more opportunities to be more strategic in the discussion. This is kind of a broad discussion. It's a town hall launching and introduction to Heal Palestine. But as we kind of grow as an organization, we're also going to be more specific and clear with all of you with meetings that are focused on very specific areas of our work so you guys can be more focused on what your opportunities are to help out.
Thank you, Steve. A couple of other questions in the chat. We've gotten some questions about donations. I just put the donation link back in the chat. So thank you to those of you looking to help support us as we start up. Another question that keeps coming up is, again, if you don't have specific expertise within those four pillars or people who are asking to help in other ways, maybe I'll just take 30 seconds to describe some of the startup help we've been getting already. Or Steve, could you just speak to some of that?
No, I give it to you. You just said you were willing to speak. So keep our
We've been getting amazing help from around the world with marketing, with graphic design, with our website, with our CRM, which is the donation system, with setting up the newsletter, with
PR.
PR. Thank you.
Yeah.
There are so many areas where you don't have to be a doctor or an educator or a previous aid worker to get involved. So for those of you who are asking about how you can help, even with administrative assistance, yes, there's all sorts of things with spreadsheets that we're trying to put together. And please feel free to email us at info@healpalestine.org for any of those sort of skills that don't fit into one of those four categories. It'll take us a couple of days because we are still getting things together, but we will get back to you, and we appreciate everyone's desire to help in so many different ways. We couldn't do this already without you.
That's true. And I'm just going to give a couple shout outs to a few people that have been significant in the helping our website. We had to build a website from scratch. Yassine Masri, I want to give a shout out to her in St. Louis. Some of the people helping us on social media have been Dalal Badran. I'm talking about people who have companies that have been giving us pro bono work. With our PR was Dina Kasrawi in Bahrain. She's been great. And Ziad Taya is a lawyer in Cleveland. He's been helping us as well. These are all pro bono people. So there's always a way that you can help out. I just want to give them a shout out because they've been helpful. In addition to actually, there's a lot of people that have been helping. I don't want to start naming names because we won't be able to finish this call. But I do want to thank everybody, whether I've mentioned you or not, to help us launch Heal Palestine. This has been truly a group effort. I think people all believe in the vision. They all want to be part of the vision. And I think this is an opportunity for you to do more than what we've been able to do. Let's keep marching. Let's keep demonstrating. Let's keep raising our voices. Let's keep advocating for peace and justice and freedom for the people of Palestine. But let's also find effective ways to heal the lives of these children during this terrible, terrible crisis and for the next, until they no longer need our love and compassion and support.
I think with that, we are at the end of our hour. There have been a few questions just for clarification's sake. I'm going to put out this brief statement, which is that people have asked whether H is related to PCRF. Please note that HEAL Palestine is a completely separate entity doing completely separate work. You are welcome to support HEAL, to support PCRF, to support both, to support none, but then that's probably not why you're here today. But it is a completely separate entity. Again, we're so happy to have all of you with us today. Please know again that we're going to send out all of the links for the 4 signups, as well as the email newsletter and our donation link in a follow-up email that'll come after the end of this call. And with that, Steve, we'll let you close out for 30 seconds or so. And thank you again, everyone, for joining. We're so excited.
I've never talked for 30 seconds in my life, but I'll try right here.
That's why
Thank you.
that's why I said that.
Thank you, Zena. Just I think briefly, this is truly a challenge for us. What's happening in Gaza right now, it's a challenge to our community and how we're going to respond. In the history of Palestine, I'm somebody who got into the Palestinian issue, we're studying it historically and from a political point of view. And I don't know any time in Palestinian history, even the Nakba, where we've seen the kind of suffering and just the clear wanton killing of innocent children to the degree that we're seeing today in Gaza. And this is a challenge for us. How are we going to respond as a community and individually? And I think our response is that we show love and compassion. We don't turn to the dark side, but rather we go to the light. And the light is one of healing and compassion and kindness, but it's also hard work and it's organizing and it's unifying and it's working together and putting aside ego and credit and any of those issues. It's not important here. What is important is that we show the people there that their lives matter, the lives of their children matter, and we do that through action. And that's what this organization is all about. There's a place for you in Heal Palestine. There's a place for so many organizations on the ground. You mentioned earlier that there's with PCRF and so on. There's a place for all of us to work, and I hope you support every organization, including PCRF. But the important thing is that Heal is giving you an opportunity as somebody who wants to be involved in a kind of with your skills and abilities and your time. There's a place for you in Heal. So just at the yes, you're raising your
All right,
finger.
there's some questions coming up about not people not being able to donate from outside of the US. Should the links work outside the US? There shouldn't be a problem with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's definitely it's a global link on our it shouldn't be related to whether you're in the US or not.
And for
And
those of you having problems or people who have asked about wire transfers, please email us again, info@healpalestine.org. We can give you wire information or help troubleshoot any issues with the link, especially if you're overseas.
yeah, perfect. Thank you, Zena. Thank you guys for coming. Everybody who showed up. We hope this is just the start. We can do more of these. Like this is not a one and done. We want good communication. We're all about transparency. If you have any questions, you have any concerns, you have any feedback, we want to do better. We want to learn. We want to grow. We want to do the right thing. Reach out to us and tell us what we could do better. Info@healpalestine.org is the best way to communicate with us right now. And these kind of seminars, town halls are going to be more open and more give all of you a chance to have your voice heard, but also more importantly, be involved in something positive for the good of our children in Gaza and in Palestine. So thank you guys for coming out. Thank you, Zena, for helping so much in the leadership role. Also, Tania, for helping to get this organization started. And all of you who've been involved to any extent or will be involved in the future. Thank you guys. This is a great chance for us to show the people we stand with Gaza, we stand with Palestine, we stand with freedom, we stand with peace, and most importantly, we're going to heal our children. Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Long live Gaza.